Well, just 2 years ago, if you turn into a show that focuses on college football and you saw Vanderbilt and Alabama as the marquee, you might have thought these people have the slowest news day ever, or they're just huge Commodore or Crimson Tide fans. But this is the marquee matchup of college football this week. Case in point, ESPN's College Game Day is headed to Tuscaloosa for the rematch between Alabama and Vanderbilt. Of course, they played a bunch of times before, but last year's big win by Vanderbilt sets up an epic marquee matchup this Saturday in Tuscaloosa. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. And Patrick, I got to tell you, 40-35 last year in a game that I think shocked everybody after Alabama beat Georgia. Kind of sets the stage for what we're seeing this year. But it's not just Alabama. Vanderbilt has also held their part of the bargain to make this a marquee matchup.
Yeah, and I think last year people were a little bit questionable about Vanderbilt. You know, they had that hot start before the Alabama game.
Right.
And then they lost to Georgia State. So then it's like, all right, who is this Vanderbilt team going to be this year? And then they roll, Alabama rolls into Nashville coming off that huge win against Georgia. But, I mean, they definitely looked a little bit suspect in the second half of that game, jumping out to that big lead. But, you know, rolling into Nashville, I don't think anybody, and I mean anybody, could have predicted that Vanderbilt was going to get their first ever win against a top-ranked team. But that's exactly what Diego Pavia and the Commodores did last year.
That's exactly right. Last year, Alabama beat Georgia, and then 7 days later, this happened. And Alabama has talked about this really all week long, and some sound that you have played earlier and sound that we've talked about with Kalen DeBoer is the fact that they did not handle success very well a year ago. And it wasn't just this game in an isolated moment, because they also didn't handle success later on in the season as well. And they ended off the year kind of subpar. Meanwhile, for Vanderbilt, they have championship rings to show for their season after getting rings in the Birmingham Bowl.
Their Birmingham Bowl rings. But, no, I mean, you bring up a good point. There's a little bit of a skid here for Alabama at this point in the season last year, coming off that Georgia win. Went 1-2 in their next 3 games, both losses coming to Tennessee teams before somewhat righting the ship before a dreadful performance that eventually knocked them out of the college football playoff in Norman. But, you know, I think keeping it one game at a time, and I know that's what the Tide have been trying to do ever since that week 1 loss at Florida State. It's just trying to keep it one play, one game at a time. And, you know, when I was listening to Kalen DeBoer in his press conference this week, I heard a little bit of Nick Saban-esque coming out of him, just one play at a time. You know, Saban was always don't ever focus on the scoreboard, just focus on executing one game at a time.
Right, and don't get too far ahead of yourself. We'll hear from Kalen DeBoer in just a moment, but first, one of the big things from last year, revisiting last year's game and maybe some of the markers for success for Vandy this go around. We have talked to our friends Julian Minnesone as well as Corey Curtis there in Nashville. They're really high on this Vanderbilt team. And Corey's done a really good job of handicapping what Vanderbilt needs to do game to game in order to be successful. And he talks about how they're a legit team in the trenches. They are really, really good up front. Last year, of course, it was a shootout. It's a wild game, 40-35 a season ago that led to this crazy scene and the goalposts going into the
That
river.
also led to you claiming that Nashville is a college town.
It is a college town. I mean, I know it's a bachelorette town for bachelorette parties, but it's also a college football town. And with the Titans being, you know, what Cam Ward said, then, you know, it's to me, to me, it is like, hey, this is Vanderbilt's town. It's a country music town. It's a Diego Pavia town, and it's a town full of stars, and they're trying to do it once again. But going back to last year's game, it was not a fluke last year, and Vanderbilt really beat Alabama. Do you think that it's the same recipe for success this time around, or do they have to handle it a little bit differently within those 60 minutes?
You know, there's a hidden thing in sports where, you know, sometimes you want to downplay games and their meaning, but honestly, I feel like all the pressure is still on Alabama here, especially with them hosting Vanderbilt this weekend.
That's a good point.
You know, Kalen DeBoer and the Tide are going to be thinking about last year's game, whether they want to admit it or not.
Right.
There's that subconscious feeling where you lose a game that you shouldn't the year before, or, for example, maybe like a week or two before in like basketball or baseball. Well, as much as you want to admit it, as much as you want to admit that it's just another game, it's not, because secretly deep down you're thinking, man, we just lost to these guys last year. We can't lose again.
Right.
And so then you start to tense up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then as the game goes on, I believe if this game stays close, and Corey mentioned it when we talked to him on Monday. If this game is a close game heading into the fourth quarter, the advantage is all in Vanderbilt's favor.
Yeah, and I think that as you mentioned, the pressure, in my opinion, is on Alabama. And Ryan Williams even put words to this earlier in the offseason when he said that, hey, we're hunting all of the opponents, all the teams that we lost to last year. That includes Tennessee and Alabama, or Tennessee and Vanderbilt. And he says, it's an ant to a sledgehammer. We want to not only beat them, we want to show them last year was not who we are, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they can bounce back this time around. And like you mentioned, this is a team that has been playing game to game, moment to moment, since that Florida State loss. This Alabama team has. Can they keep it up going into this week as well? I know you have kind of a comparison graphic between the two quarterbacks going into this matchup, and this is something I find really interesting because these are two guys that are riding a high right now for a lot of good reasons. You can tell both guys are really efficient with the football. The biggest thing they're not doing, though, they're not turning it over. Pavia only with 3 interceptions on the year, and a clean slate for Ty Simpson.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to be careful with the, I guess, announcer jinx, if you want to call it that with Simpson. But, my eye has been on that 0 interceptions, that column there for a few weeks now because I'm like, you're holding your breath because you like what you see if you're an Alabama fan out of Ty Simpson, but you're just like, all right, like, when's it going to wear off?
Yeah.
If it's going to wear off.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, you hope if you're a Tide fan that it never wears off. But I think being able to be methodical, and that's what Clark Lee said this week to his Vanderbilt team, and we'll listen to that in a little bit here. But Alabama being methodical against Georgia, it almost seemed like during that Georgia game they were just doing whatever they wanted to against that Bulldogs defense. And I mean, when you have your way with the defense and you can control the time of possession, control the ball, milk the clock when you're up, I mean, it's all the ingredients for a perfect win.
Absolutely. And Clark Lee has been kind of this steady voice for this football team in a lot of the same way that Coach DeBoer has for Alabama. They mirror each other a lot. And from my perspective, taking a team full of young kids, a young squad, and saying, hey, we got to bring the temperature down and be able to stay calm, but also still be excited, to still have that energy and that juice and that fire and that passion. Got a chance to hear from Clark Lee about Alabama and their big game against Georgia last week.
They have explosive skill, so I want to be careful and not just saying that's we if we're tackling well and we're covering well, then they're gonna be more methodical. If we're not tackling well or not covering well, they can get up and over the top pretty quickly. And if you watch, I mean, they had opportunities against Georgia where they were open down the field and just off for whatever reason. Against Wisconsin, some catch and run plays that were really impressive. And so we have to play in structure. We have to tackle well. We have to cover well. That'll force them to be a little more methodical, which again then becomes how do you get them off schedule and get them off the field, because the risk you run if you're not able to do that is, our offense, which we think is pretty good, is standing on the sideline the entire time. Now, we're not going to lose patience. This is how we have played, for 2 years now. So we can be patient, and we're going to defend every blade of grass, and we need to do a better job in this game of forcing field goal attempts at the end of long drives.
All right, so there is Coach Clark Lee as he talks about his football team going into this game. I'm going to reference one of the things that Coach Saban used to always say after his team won a national championship. It would come back the next year, and Coach Saban would always say, we're not defending anything. We're not defending a championship because the championship's already won. We are trying to climb the next mountain. Now, once you win the championship, you become the mountain for everybody else. So if you do suffer a loss, there might be some revenge factor in your brain. But in his mind, they were never defending a championship. Mm-hmm. By that same token, do you think that Alabama can think about revenge in this game, or do they have to clear the slate? Because in my opinion, both modes of thinking work in this football game. Whether you're thinking about revenge and you're using that as an edge, or you're thinking about as this is a clean slate, a new season, a new chance to chase an opportunity, and Vanderbilt just happens to be the team standing in our way. What would be your approach as Coach Walsh for this team?
So, oh gosh, Coach Walsh. I mean, Coach Walsh would be on the sidelines. And honestly, he would have a little bit of thought about last year's game, because you just can't.
Yeah.
You can't, like I said, no matter how many times you want to try to drown it out, you just cannot get rid of the fact that you lost to this team last year. That's going to sting at you, and I'm sure it's bitten at them for the last year now. But at the same time, you're building something good here at Alabama this year.
Yeah.
You didn't have game one go the way you wanted. There was a lack of effort across the board.
Yep.
But it was a wake-up call, and I honestly think, looking back on it, this is probably the best thing that's ever going to happen to Alabama this year is that week one loss, because, I mean, it showed everyone in the program, coaches, players, training staff, everyone, that you can't just mosey your way on into a new place and just because you're Alabama, you're going to win the game.
Right.
No, you got to put the effort in.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen over the last few weeks. I mean, there was a great win against Georgia, a really nice win against Wisconsin at home a few weeks ago. But now you host Vanderbilt with College game day coming. All the noise is going to be on your game. But, I mean, honestly, you just got to play calm and relax. I know it's easier said than done, but, I mean, you have the talent is on Alabama's side, and it always will be, no matter what. It's the willpower.
Yeah.
Does Alabama truly want to win this game? Yes, but can they show it on the field?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really interesting thing of how they try to do it, and I think that if it mirrors a lot what we've seen in the Georgia matchup, then we will be treated as football fans to a really great game because Vanderbilt will not come in intimidated. They will not be intimidated at all. They will not be scared of this matchup at all as they face Alabama. We also heard from Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer on this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue against that. You got to handle success, and you got to come back every single week in this league. And I've talked to, every coach I talk to at midfield, that's what the conversation's about is, here you go again. And you got to reload mentally, physically, emotionally to during the week, get prepared at the highest level you possibly can, and go play ball. Physically, it's going to be a battle, and mentally, you got to be ready to respond. And so, we didn't handle success, however you want to put it, last year well. You can't argue that. I also think that they did a nice job executing in critical times and made plays. And so, no different this week, right? We and our success that we had on Saturday, none of it matters. None of it carries over. The third down stops, the third down execution on offense, it doesn't matter. Points don't carry over. Every game's its own game. There's new matchups that are going to be presented in this game that were different than last week. And so, just like I talk about every play being its own play, this game is its own game.
So before we sign off for this segment, the betting odds right now don't see a high-scoring football game. Last year, 75 points were scored overall. There are four options I'll give you here, Patrick.
Okay.
The spread and the over-under. All right, so Alabama's a 10.5-point favorite. Do you like to lay the points with Alabama? Do you want to take the points with Vandy? The over-under is 56.5, and I'll do the estimated score. It's 30, 33, 23, somewhere in there is about the estimated score for what they're saying. So do you like 56.5 over or under, or Bama laying the points, or are you taking the points with Vandy?
Oh, man. I got to pick one?
You got to pick one of those. Your favorite one of those.
My favorite one would probably be the over.
Okay, so you like more points.
Yes.
Yeah, you like more points.
As much as they want to be methodical with the football, I feel like Alabama's going to have their way. The Tide are going to have their way with the Vanderbilt defense to the point where they jump out to an early lead, and then Vanderbilt's forced to move the chains and go quick. I like high-scoring game. I feel, I just don't like 10.5. That's a number that makes me feel uneasy.
It makes you a little queasy. It opened at 11.5 and it's gone down 1 point. So there's been a little bit of money on Vanderbilt, but not enough money to slide that thing, 2, 3, 4 points, which I thought we would be down by now. The odds makers have put a lot more initial money on Vanderbilt to bring this thing down 2 to 3 points. The fact that it's gone down 1 lets you know that Vegas at least thinks that they feel safe with a double-digit Alabama spread there. Yeah, so I think I did the math right. Yeah, it's 56 with a 10.5-point spread. So your estimated score is about 33 to 23. But you like a higher scoring game.
I like a higher scoring game.
I like it as well.